Why Dan Hurley is taking positionless basketball to the limits. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to share some quick news. Thanks to fantastic changes in our programming, we have our co-host like I have today with Dan Meehan twice a week. Great contributions from Emily Adams of the Hartford Courant and Joe Arruda, both on the beat for the men's and women's team. Also some great interviews this month. It's been our best month, and it's only getting better in November. Special shout out to my everydayers because it's listeners like you that help us grow. Finally, here's something we're really excited about. We're doing two things that we're really excited. We give 10% of our revenue to UConn's NIL collective, Bleeding Blue for Good, and we do 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project that helps send kids to experience the excitement of UConn men's basketball and football. So we're pumped about all that. So if you're enjoying the content, please take a second to subscribe. We're building something special here. YouTube, audio, wherever you follow your podcasts, get it here. Thanks for helping and making a real difference for Husky fans everywhere and for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, let's bring in Dan Meehan here from the podcast and Exit 68. Hey, man.
What are you doing?
I watched the game last night, and then I listened to the comments on Dan's media availability. He made one of the most interesting comments about the 92-66 win over Sacred Heart was that if Jayden Ross was not hurt last night, he would have started in last night's game. And my first question in my head was, over whom? And then I started to think about, because his response was essentially, because it was asked, I think David Borges asked it, or Joe Arruda in the media room last night, asked about that, and he kind of chuckled and just said, we're gonna look at this in a different way, that it's like positionless. Essentially talked about Jayden has been a rocket ship over the last 2 weeks, and they don't want to lose that. And if he's healthy, he's going to play. So you were there. Obviously, Jayden didn't play. He was on the bench. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jayden was in street clothes last night. I didn't get to see the comments from Hurley until after the game, where he mentioned that Jayden would have started. So you start to think about the starting lineup from last night. It was what we projected, I think, coming into the game. Yep. I think the one thing that we were waiting to see was if Mahaney would indeed start over Hassan like he did in the URI exhibition match. He did. So the starting five last night was Aiden at the point guard, Solo at the 2, Samson Johnson at center, no change there, Karaban and McNeeley on the wings. So I think if you're going to break it down and try to think of who Jayden's going to start over, I would imagine being his second year in the program, Solo gets the nod at the 1, and Mahaney probably gets pushed to the bench as the first or second guy to come off the court when someone subs out. But that's a super wing heavy lineup. That is probably what last year would have been considered small ball. But coming into this season, I think you lose King Klong. You still got Samson and Tarris Reed coming off the bench playing center, but that's a more wing heavy lineup. That's filling passing lanes and getting out and running, shooting the ball. I think that lineup is more indicative of one that's shooting heavy as opposed to kind of moving the ball inside and out in the middle. So yeah, an interesting comment. I'm very eager to see how the lineup in the second game plays out if he is indeed ready. But if he needs a couple more days, it'll probably stick with the same lineup. But yeah, shot out of a can in the last few weeks. He's turned a page, flipped a switch. So I'm excited to see him take the court, and I'm interested to see how they play once he's back.
Yeah, I know it's such like a good problem to have. I mean, when we left last season high off the back-to-back titles, the prevailing theme all in the offseason was the next guys are Solo, Jalen Stewart, and Jayden was kind of like the forgotten guy, right? Yep. But Dan is, to his credit, has always said that Jayden Ross in practice, in his opportunities when they have these competitive moments in these plays, that Jayden is, and he calls him J Ross, and J Ross has always been a guy that stands out. And guys that NBA scouts will come in and be like, who's that? That 6'8" guy that's, crushing people on the wing. So
it was something that carved out, and Matt ended up carving out and becoming one of the most important players to ever play for us in Andre Jackson. The guy could barely dribble when he came to UConn. He couldn't shoot. By his junior year, he was just a total force multiplier out there, and he could do a little bit of everything. I think they think of him like that in that role where he could just be a total game changer, both defensively and getting out on the break. Like, he can do a little bit of everything, and he's got a smooth jump shot. I saw him in the open practice this summer at Gampel. Him and Isaiah Abraham really stood out athletically to me on that day. So I can't wait to see what he can do out there.
Before we get to the second segment and take a break and pay some bills here, I think if he does go this lineup, it'll be so wild to see, because I think it's going to look like this. As I talked about this before you started to come on the show as a co-host, and said this lineup could end up being Solo with Liam McNeeley at the quote unquote the 2. And then you put Jay Ross, and I thought it might have been Jalen Stewart, but a 6'8" wing and the 3 at, with Jay Ross, and you have Alex at the 4 with the center. So that could be your lineup. Going forward.
There were lineups a few times last year, in rare occasions, but they did turn to it a few times where they considered this their small ball lineup when early in the season, or when Klingon would get into either foul trouble or needed a blow. Alex would actually move to the 5.
He did a little bit of that last night too.
Yeah, so he's comfortable doing that if he's called upon to do it. I don't think they mind going to that lineup, truthfully, because like you said, they're the best players are going to play. That's a dangerous lineup if you're talking about playing in transition, getting out, getting a block on the defensive end, and then running. I don't know how, as a defending team, you keep up with a lineup like that for 40 minutes. So they're adaptable. They're gonna move some things around, but I don't mind seeing that lineup one bit.
I think it's I think the pros to it are you probably gain some rebounding prowess even when you play teams that are bigger, because can I be honest with you, and you were there in person, Sacred Heart has good positional size for a lower high mid major, that kind of thing, where they just joined the MAC, so they're not as low as the NEC anymore. They have a bunch of 6'5" guards. They had 6'7", 6'8" guys, so it's not like we were playing tiny 5'10" guys and you could push them around. So I just feel like as time goes on, when you're playing quicker, faster, more athletic teams like Baylor, Texas, Gonzaga, nobody that we're facing it has that big of a lineup. Baylor has no real size.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about outside of the Big East. I think there's a few teams that really beefed up at the center position after they saw how UConn played them last year. They said, we just need to get bigger. Providence picks up a 7-footer. A couple other teams went out in the transfer portal and got some guys to try to, counteract the size and positional length that UConn is going to bring to the table. And now it's almost like UConn, they still got, Tarris Reed and Samson Johnson, don't get me wrong, who are just shy of 7 feet each. But when they move to that small ball lineup, good luck running with that. It's going to be tough.
Right. But I also don't think they lose much, unless you're playing against Ryan Kalkbrenner, who had like 50 points last night.
Yeah, crazy.
Who's 6'11", 7 foot. But outside of that, I mean, in conference, and then when they play some of the folks in Maui, if you run that small ball kind of killer lineup of Alex at the 5, I think it's going to bring a lot of versatility to the team, and they're going to be able to run a lot of complex offense. So
for sure, they got their hands on everything last night. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's pay some bills and then come back, because I want to hear about. You talked about the extravaganza that is now at stores in Gampel coming up after the break. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on an uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is where Robinhood Gold. Sign up, robinhoodgold.com/gold Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold memberships is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. What's up, NFL fans? Get ready to tackle action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the app. It gives you everything you need to go right in the same place where you place your bets on all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL. And we're back on Locked On UConn with my co-host Dan Meehan of Exit 68. All right. Hey, by the way, I saw a movie the other day, and the bar's name was Meehan's. I forget.
There's a couple Irish bars in Meehan's. I think there's one in Atlanta and then a bunch of them in Ireland.
Oh, God, I forget which one it was. But if I remember the movie, I'll bring it up. But it made me laugh. I was like, oh, I took a picture. I was like, oh, look, there it is. All right, man, you were at the game. Tell me about your experience. Obviously, they won. We're super excited about it. But it's more about the event. I'm probably going to be able to go to 1 or 2 games this year, hopefully by January or February. So tell me what I can look forward to.
If there was ever a doubt from anyone, any outsiders, that this is the basketball capital of the world, after stepping foot on that campus last night for the game, it is undoubtedly the basketball capital of the world. The showmanship, the pageantry before the games, during the games, after the games, it's a full-on P.T. Barnum circus of basketball, and it was just fantastic. The new video boards, the upgrades they made to Gampel Pavilion were incredible. Experiential wise, it was just a total game changer. The whole event is altered because of what those video boards bring. Like they're behind you. There's stuff projected onto the iconic, matte ceiling of the Gampel Pavilion. You look across the court, and there's they played some really cool compilation videos from all the championship teams before the game, just to kind of preview the trophy coming out onto the court. They played a cool voiceover video from Cam and Klingon, and they
saw that.
I
watched it.
Hurley was just I don't think he knew it was going to happen. They showed Cam up on the big screen, and Hurley was just in awe and super happy. So that was a really cool moment. They've got flags with the basketball capital of the world, Connecticut flag on it that spans the entire length of the student section on both decks. The place was vibrating. They definitely upgraded some of the sound systems in there, so it was loud. UConn letters with flames coming out of them. Cheerleaders doing backflips the length of the entire court. It was a full-on show, and the team, they showed out too. So it was a really fun night being back on campus.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it looked pretty cool. Like I watched a bunch of the stuff, but it has to be an even better experience there. I did see our buddy Little Red was like, I can't hear what anyone's saying. The bass is too loud. Like I feel like he's like the oldest, probably 20.
I was in his section behind him. Actually, I actually screamed at him when he came back to his seat to show the crowd his biceps. He indeed had no problem doing so.
What? He's so shy.
It was loud. It was very bassy in there. The whole place was rumbling. It was a little hard to hear some of the stuff on the microphone, but I just think it was just like this. It was like being in Ford Field for a Detroit Lions game. Just this constant, just pumping in of just noise from the crowd. It was awesome.
Do you feel like the crowd was underwhelming? Because some of the people on the live show had that comment. That not that the experience wasn't great, is that the fans weren't, because even Dan got up one time and was like, up, you know what I mean? Like, and went crazy, like he normally does. But I saw Alex do that too.
I think there was some chatter just of people trying to figure out, like, this is a new team. There's some new faces. I think there's some people in the crowd that might not be as plugged into some of those changes, that are just trying to figure out who's that guy, you know, who's this guy coming in. So maybe it's just, first game, jitters stuff for the crowd, trying to figure out who the team is. But yeah, no, it was a fun game. It was loud in there. Once the team really got playing, there were a couple hiccups early in the game, some sloppy play, throwing the ball away, some baseline cuts, the ball gets thrown the other way. But once they kind of worked through some of that stuff in the first 10 minutes of the first half and they got going, they started to stretch that lead out. They were shooting the ball really well, ton of blocks. They got out on the break. First, play of the game, Sampson, our 7-foot center, gets a steal at the 3-point line, runs the length of the court for a slam, as John Fanta said on the broadcast, which was perfect. Awesome having Fanta on campus as well. I think we saw him and Braylon Mullen's family hanging out at Ted's before the game for a couple hours. That was really cool. So all in all, really entertaining night on the Storrs campus.
I love it. Thanks for making me really jealous. Got to give a shout out to John Fanta, expecting dad. Best wishes to him and his wife. Hopefully everything works out really well. And then also to Braylon Mullins and his family for being on campus. I read an article about him and some of the reasons why he moved on, moved to UConn over Indiana. We'll talk about that on Friday, and then that episode will be out on Monday. So we'll tease for you guys. Braylon Mullins will be joining Locked On UConn on Friday afternoon for an interview similar to what we did with Eric Ryba, and I don't think we have a T-shirt for him, but that's okay. We can talk about it soon. When we return, we're going to talk about probably one of the most important positions, even though we're playing positionless. One of the most important spots on the court is going to be the center position, and we'll talk about Tarris Reed and his electric debut coming up after the break. Hey guys, let's be real. Sometimes life gets busy and that can impact your confidence when it comes to intimacy. But with Hims, taking care of yourself is easier than ever. Hims provides access to doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and even generics that are up to 95% cheaper than the normal brands. The process is straightforward. Just answer a few questions online, and a medical professional will determine the right treatment for you. No waiting rooms, no uncomfortable doctor visits, just discreet, effective care delivered straight to your door. With thousands of satisfied users, Hims is trusted to help you find the ED solution that works for you. So why wait? Start your free online visit today by going to hims.com/lockedon. That's Hims, HIMS.com/lockedon. And we're back on Locked On UConn with Dan Meehan of Exit 68, my co-host 2 times a week, which we love. All right, man, I made a huge deal about Tarris Reed when he transferred to UConn, and it wasn't because he was such a ready-made like Omar Ballo who went from Arizona to Indiana, but just based off of what I saw. I had a guy come in that covers Michigan who basically talked about how he has all this untapped potential, was a top 30 recruit, and also we have Dan Hurley in this staff who is fantastic with development. This kid has been called too athletic for his own good, a monster of a man. His nickname is Big Hoss. And one of the things I loved about last night, and I don't know if you're with me on this, even Donovan, as much as I love Donovan Clingan, whenever Tarris Reed had a guy on his hip, he would turn, pivot, and dunk. He didn't try to lay it up. He didn't try to do a little soft floater like some of the guys do, even though they're 6'10 or 6'11. He went hard at the rim. And he's a monster of a man. So I think that bodes well because it shows an aggressiveness that I love from a center, especially when you're playing with a bunch of wings who can get out and get in transition. You get some free buckets. I was super impressed, not only with his offensive acumen, but some of the blocks he did where he came back and blocked that shot with his left hand. Rebounding. He had a double-double last night. I had a stat last night on Twitter. Him and Liam McNeeley, both double-doubles before today's game. UConn, nobody on UConn's roster had a double-double in the collegiate game except for Tarris Reed coming into this. So he got another one, and then Liam doubled it up. So now we have 2 guys that have double-doubles, and I'm sure we're going to get more as time goes on. What are your thoughts on Tarris and this center position?
He was a total game changer in the second half. The story of this UConn team in the last few years, they just wear you down over a 40-minute period. There's 2 different players. Samson Johnson plays a little bit more finesse and above the rim. He can sky for a big guy and catch on those lobs. He caught one last night from Alex. It was just awesome. Just the classic
goal play.
UConn and Samson play. They've run it for a couple years now. But when he goes out for whatever reason, whether he's in foul trouble or They just want to switch up the lineup. Tarris is just he's all of 6'10", every bit of it. He's filled out. He is a grown man. He is like Jeff Adrian plus 5 inches. And when you take out Samson Johnson, who plays above the rim, and bring in that guy to bang around in the post and just kills you down low. He had more offensive rebounds last night than he did defensive. He ended up with 11. He had 6 offensive boards, 2 steals, 2 blocks, filled it up. He only played 23 minutes, 5 of 7 from the field. So that's just totally efficient. And that's most of which is coming in the second half. So when you're exhausted, this guy comes in and is just beating you to a pulp. So total game changer. I think he's going to be a second team All Big East player if there's enough room. But he showed last night, if there was any doubt that he's going to be getting primetime minutes this year, you can forget that, because he's going to be playing a lot. He was fantastic last night.
Yeah, my prediction that I told you about pre-show that I didn't tell you what I was going to say is I think Tarris is going to start by the time we get to Maui.
It's very possible.
And the reason why I say that is because exactly what you just said, but the flip, which is I'd rather Tarris come in and beat you up physically from the start. And when you're tired, then you throw Samson in there, who is going to fly by you because he's infinitely faster and a little more kind of a rim runner, above the rim type player from a lob perspective and all of that. I just think it would make more sense. And I think they're going to find that out as time goes on.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, and maybe they play with it a little bit. I think the only thing that might keep the lineup just stable as it is the continuity from Samson Johnson, just having been there the last few years. They might want to come out and run a few set plays, the playbook, so to speak, kind of like a NFL football team does. They have a plan of what they want to run the first 2, 3, 4, 5 plays. So they might just keep Samson in the starting lineup for that reason, just to kind of set the tone and show some looks before they bring Tarris in. But we'll see, man. It's like you said, it's a great problem to have.
Did you hear your point about the scripted plays? Did you hear that that's what Dan is doing?
No,
So Fanta brought that up last night on the broadcast, that he essentially is scripting the first like 5 to 10 plays that they run from the game. So no matter what, unless they're on like a fast break, when they get a ball and it's a set, it's just like they know exactly what they should be doing. And I think it's smart because it's a new team and they're trying to get some of that continuity like you're talking about.
Yeah, I think they probably trust Samson, just having been there for a few years now, to do that a little bit more. But as the season plays on, if Tarris is showing signs of really getting it and playing well and running some of those sets early in the game, then you could see a change there.
For sure, man. Trying to think of anything else, because I'm just so happy that we are in season.
We're back.
So I can stop saying the hypotheticals, like UConn.
Yeah, no more conjecture. We're here.
Yep. We're 1-0. You got the UConn women tonight. I'll be doing a live reaction show after the game of that when they play BU. So hopefully we can both start off 1-0 with the women. I'm sure that they'll have no problem with Boston University, Jim Calhoun's old stomping grounds. Mm-hmm. Any parting shots for the fans that
just a couple notes. At first game of the season, we were waiting to see a couple guys. I thought McNeeley was fantastic. I don't think there's any surprise there. He leads the way with 10 rebounds, 18 points. The team was, I thought, in the first half was just a tad sloppy, some first game jitters, but they settled in, and you look up the scoreboard, similar to last year, you're like, I don't think we're playing that well. And then you look up and we're shooting 62%, 45 from 3. And
we're selfish. We're spoiled. We're spoiled fan base.
Well, I didn't even think they were shooting the ball that well. I look up and they were shooting like 55% from 3, like at the end of the first half or something. 13 blocks, that led the nation for every team in America for the first game. They had, I love the stocks stat. I'm a big stocks guy. On StatMuse on Twitter, I love that stat that they throw out. I think they had 10 steals and 13 blocks last night, which is a total. That's a nightmare for the defense. Karaban mentioned after the game he learned a lot from his roommate Donovan Clingan. It showed last night. He had 7 of their 13 blocks, a number of which were like fingertip blocks, which just looked like vintage Clingan. Karaban, we talked about him at being a preseason All-American favorite. He might be elevated to a different conversation after seeing what I saw last night. The guy is never in the wrong place. He keeps the ball moving. He led every huddle vocally. He was 5 of 7 from 3, 7 blocks. Like, he did a little bit of everything. He looked like a National Player of the Year candidate last night.
Absolutely. Before we close the show, I gotta read a quote, not from Dan Hurley, not from anyone at UConn, but from my dad, who's a lifelong UConn fan, who texted me this morning and said, very impressed with UConn last night, although they had some turnovers. First game overall saw growth from returning players, especially solo ball. Karaban was amazing. Positive signs from both centers. Liam will be a great player and the future looks bright. So that's from my father, Bill Zanetto. He is a big fan of UConn, and I think he watches for most of the time. He's been on the show back in when we first started. So maybe we'll have to get him on again this year, because that's it in a nutshell. Like that. I mean, it really is. Like, Liam was fantastic. Great signs from both centers, although we didn't touch on Sampson's foul trouble. We'll get to that as the season rolls on. I guarantee it, because that was honestly probably the only thing that concerned me last night, is he followed out with like 7:20 to go in the second half. But I think they'll figure that out. I think the whistle was a little weird last night for UConn in a home game. But all in all, game 1 in the books. Looking to Saturday against New Hampshire, and we roll from there, man. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. For Dan Meehan, I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected. Make sure those toughness meters are on an all-time high, because I've heard from people that the fan base was a little underwhelming last night. So I want to hear you guys more. If I'm at home on my couch, pissed off that I can't be there, don't not show out and go not go crazy at a UConn game. So make sure we do it. We're doing that on a regular basis. These guys have earned it. Go Huskies.